For spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes prove in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. And crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this
Hello, SHS. My name is Derek Elder. I'm an SHS graduate of the class of '99. I was one of Miss Lawson's students many years ago, and I'm honored that she asked me to speak to you today on Veterans Day. I think it's an important holiday to remember. We differentiate Veterans Day and Memorial Day to where Veterans Day is where you honor the veterans that have served this country throughout its existence and acknowledge their sacrifice and contemplate what they have done to provide this country the space to grow and become what it is. I think that, I had pretty limited exposure to veterans, especially compared to, I think, how it is now. Soldiers were not largely part of the popular culture when I was growing up as a kid, but there were a few that stood out to me, and most of them were directly in the Sullivan, Illinois area. All of them, and I'll name them in a second, had a pretty big impact on my young life as members of the community and just kind of shaping who I was as a person, who I became, and what I thought was important. The first was my dad. He served in the Illinois Army National Guard for 6 years, and he taught me a lot about how he handled his responsibilities and how he balanced the needs of his organization without working them too hard or running them into the ground, and trying to take care of them, as was his responsibility. The second and the most visible person in uniform that I saw growing up was Jerry Dykus. He was the administrative sergeant that ran the National Guard Armory just next to the high school there, but he was also a Vietnam War veteran, and he was never afraid to talk to me about his experience and what he thought might be a good path for me. And then the third is the late Bill Shastine. He was the father of Mike Shastine, who owned the Ford dealership in town for years. He was a World War II and a Korean War veteran, and he sat on my board in Boy Scouts to help me attain the rank of, I think, Star. It's been a few years, but he was a prominent part of that. He actually, before he died, he gave me his first set of lieutenant's rank that my dad pinned on me the day that I joined the Army. And so I think about those guys a lot, and what they set out as what the right kind of person to be was, what the right kind of leader they wanted an officer in the Army to be. And I think I'm very thankful for that. Specifically from the Army standpoint, but even from just the citizen of Sullivan and Illinois and the United States standpoint, they were exceptional. They are exceptional. And there's a lot that can be learned from their ability to serve their country for however long they did. I think Jerry was in uniform for well over 20 years, my dad for 6, and Mr. Shastine for, I don't know, probably in the neighborhood of 10 in 2 different wars. But they all were also very much members of their community and active citizens in making their home the best place that they could. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. The United States has a long tradition of citizen soldiers that, they're not full-time. The professional army is a relatively recent invention. And I think it's not to the exclusion of the citizen soldiers. If you drive around town, you'll see the signs that my mom used to put on the telephone poles, just filled with kids that I went to high school with, serving in the National Guard and the reserves or on active duty in any of the branches. And it speaks a lot to the commitment of the people of our community to protect the country, but also to protect the community itself. And those efforts that my mom and then Ruth Shastine, the daughter-in-law of Bill Shastine, those signs were featured in the Chicago Tribune. So it's kind of a big deal, that sense of community that propels one to serve their country. And I think it's worth honoring. And I'm glad that Sullivan High School takes the time to do it. As far as me and who I am, so I graduated, like I said, in the class of '99. As you have probably guessed by now, and Miss Lawson may confirm, I'm a much better writer than I am an oral communicator, so you're going to have to suffer with me through the rest of this video, but I hope it's somewhat informative. Graduated, went to the University of Illinois on an ROTC scholarship, and joined the Army in May of 2003. I've been serving on active duty ever since. I've got 7 deployments to somewhere around a dozen countries, not all of them combat deployments. Since 2008, been serving with the U.S. Army Special Forces, known popularly as the Green Berets, in a number of different positions there. And I've been very fortunate to have a lot of fun, be successful, and to not not have to experience anything terribly unpleasant. I can't say that I haven't experienced any of those things, but it hasn't been the kind of thing that gets movies made or books written in a bad way. So I've been fortunate that my personal experience has been overwhelmingly positive, not without its challenges and not without its trials. And I know that the path that I've chosen at multiple points has not been the easy one. One thing I will say about that is a lot of what I learned in Sullivan and at the university was not to let anyone else limit me in my choices. In Special Forces, we kind of, you have to try out for the organization. It's a 3-week selection process where you get kicked in the gut pretty hard with challenging tasks and difficult circumstances, and you've got to prove that you can learn new skills and interact in a small team and not let the stress get to you. But the thing that Special Forces, as they recruit people, constantly tell everyone is don't select yourself out of our organization. And what they mean by that is don't limit yourself, take the chance. And I think that was one of the things that I learned as a student and at school and at the university is don't let anything outside of you dictate what you're going to do. And so I earned a 4-year ROTC scholarship, which was not an easy thing to do. And I was fortunate to have a lot of help from a lot of people in preparing that packet. But, it didn't allow the long odds to stop me from going for it. As a young soldier, I had to attend Ranger School, which is a very difficult thing to do, and I had to try twice. I failed the first time, but I didn't allow those circumstances to stop me from going back and having the grit to push through a very difficult experience and to be successful. And the same thing in Special Forces. It was the goal that I set, and I knew that I was in control as much as possible of the circumstances to be successful. And even if I wasn't going to let someone else stop me from trying. I think it's very easy to limit yourself out of something because it might be hard or it might not be successful. And there are multiple things that I've tried to do throughout my time in the Army that I wasn't successful at, and I'm grateful for it. Being prepared to not be successful was almost as useful for my development of character as if I had been successful. The friction that I went through in that process and having to deal with not being successful made me more prepared to be successful at something else. And so what I would tell you is, where you came from, the fact that you're from a small town in the middle of Illinois doesn't need to limit you to what you can accomplish or what you can set your sights on. It really doesn't matter. There's so much that's available to you that you may not know about, and I would just urge you to go find your dreams and chase them. And it's okay if you don't know what they are yet. I was fortunate that when I was a student in Miss Lawson's class, I wanted to be sitting here in this uniform, serving my country, and I was fortunate to be able to do that. But I recognize that that's not common. So what I would tell you is, as you set your sights and understand that it's going to be difficult, you understand that it's also, when things are difficult, it's not something that you're just going to suddenly rise to the occasion and defeat. You're going to have to develop the character and the grit to overcome those things along the way. And that can be done in those halls as well. I credit Don Tipper, who I think is still working there at the elementary school, with instilling in me the work ethic to be a better football player, because it didn't come easy to me the way that, frankly, academics did. And so I learned that, if I wanted to contribute to that team, that I had to put in a lot of extra time. But I also learned that it was worth it. And I think, if this year has taught us anything, it's that, so many things outside your control may make your life harder. But you need to appreciate that what you're experiencing and what you're going through is actually a good thing, or it can be a good thing if you allow it to be. If you allow yourself to learn from these situations and to take good things away from it and move forward with a purpose and the confidence that you can endure some trials, then you will have been better for it. And I think, if nothing else, learning that if we all work together, we can overcome these trials is something that this country could very much stand to relearn. And I think that's kind of where I'll leave it. things that will get you through these traits in terms of being, what we're honoring today in our veterans. These are the same people that have come back to be community leaders and leaders at the state level, or pillars of business, or whatever you want to call it. But they really exemplify the values that we want to hold up as Americans. And it's hard to put it exactly into words, but I always think about the 12 points of the Scout Law that some of you probably aren't familiar with. But growing up in Boy Scouting, the saying is, a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And understanding what each of those words mean and why they're important, because it's about being a caring citizen in your community, in your country, and everything else. And that's really, that's what we ask of our veterans, is to care enough about their country to set their own self-interest aside and make a sacrifice. And so I think it's right that we should honor them, and I appreciate you guys for doing the same. I really hope that you've taken something good away from this, and I look forward to meeting some of you in person at future Veterans Day events. Thank you so much. Good night.